Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up. My name is Scott Morgan with the Motor City Madmouth. Please be joined by Madman Mancini. We're going to have a mad show, and he points his finger because he knows it. Mark, welcome back to the big show.
Show that's sweeping the country, man. Must see, must hear radio, man. On Tuesdays, the throwdown with you and I.
Mark, you keep saying that stuff, throw down, sweeping the country. You better be smart enough to patent that cotton picking thing and trademark it, man. We gotta teach Mancini to have a few Manciniisms other than sweeping the country, tearing it up, and all that business. You got to expand your horizons. You know about the vocabulary of a cotton picking cat, and that isn't much of one when it comes to your promotional skills. Anyways, just take it for whatever it's worth. From one mad mouth to a madman. And I know you've always been able to stand there and take a lot of my constructive information because that's really what it is. Tearing it up around the car, whatever. Those we call Manciniisms. Anyways, tonight's broadcast will be focusing. What we're going to be doing going forward is focusing on different markets week in and week out. So tonight we're going to be talking Philadelphia sports. And every week we're going to go into a different city, to try to keep it fresh around there. And then our parting shots, should we have time to do it, we could talk about anything. But, we want to make sure we get our show out to as many people as we can around the country. So with that said, Mark, Ben Simmons' return to Philadelphia tonight will be ugly. And it's justified. Reminds me, though, Mark, when former Detroit Red Wing Marcel Dionne spent 4 years in Detroit, really got sick and tired of losing during the Dead Wings era return in 75-76 as a member of the LA Kings. I'll never forget how ugly it was because at Olympia Stadium, they created a tent/canvas through the tunnel to save Dionne from getting flying debris. So with that said, okay, Ben Simmons didn't leave the city of brotherly love. In fact, in his eyes, it was a city of brotherly hate, all of his own doing, by the way. So what kind of a reception is Ben Simmons going to be getting out in Philly?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If tickets were one price, they've just doubled or tripled to see him come back to town. It's the first time he's been back in Philadelphia in 2.5 years, actually playing a game. So This is going to be interesting. I like Ben Simmons a lot. I don't know what the whole thing back and forth, because I really thought a kid like that could take over Philly and be the next coming of the Rocky statue. But not wanting to play and, the back injuries and everything, and then demanding a trade out of Philadelphia after, Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid supposedly threw him under the bus. And after that playoff loss to Atlanta, that pretty much signaled the end of the era for him in Philly. And then he's going to Brooklyn, and, the back injury kept him out last year, and here he comes now. So this is going to be a must-see TV in the Philadelphia and across the country.
Yeah, well, you make an interesting point, too, because I understand Joel Embiid and James Harden are out with injuries. So if there's ever a reason to go to a game, for a lot of Philly fans that are looking to go out there and work off a little stress and utilize that word called boo and do it a lot, this is an opportunity for them to go out there and really vent their frustration, anger. I think potentially had a great potential career, and he could revive it, but he's brought a lot of that drama to Brooklyn, but he's starting to play a little bit better after being out a while. So, let's talk about the Philadelphia people. You obviously have a show out there anyways. And so, we talked that that's a very demanding market for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm blessed. WWDB AM 860 out of Philadelphia. When I look at Philadelphia, being a Pittsburgh boy, it's kind of hard to cross the barrier. It's kind of like living in LA and cheering for the San Francisco teams. But right. I'll tell you, when you look at the whole thing that Philly brings, the fans are passionate. They're different than New York fans, I think. I've always said to you, Scott, if I could play baseball in 5 cities, if it's not Pittsburgh and San Diego, Philly would be my third choice. And I think it's a town that you can take over. They love people that give 100%. I mean, I'd market myself big time if I'm walking around that city in more ways than one. And, I built a following in Philadelphia. So I like it. It's different than, Los Angeles in some way, because Los Angeles is a big city with a lot of different backgrounds. But I just don't think they have the passion and desire they have in Philadelphia to a certain extent. They embrace you. They're interested in people giving 100% with whatever they do. And if they acknowledge them, they'll acknowledge you 3 times over. So I'm blessed to be in this city and continue being in this city. And, it's a great city to be in, my friend.
Yeah, Mark, I've had some dealings with Philadelphia, and they've been really pleasant for the most part. And I think I'll never forget, first of all, when I covered the Philadelphia Phillies at the old Jack Russell Stadium out in Clearwater. I once wanted to get an interview with Steve Carlton, but I knew my odds of getting him were probably slim. By the way, Will Vogel, thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate it. But getting back to my thought, that here's the thing. I'll never forget the fans. Von Hayes was the guy who they acquired in like a 5 or 6 for 1 trade. And when the Philly fans really got on this guy, that was my story. And I went out there and got Von. It was really nice. I had an opportunity. But, they're strong-minded fans. But the one thing about the Philadelphia fans I know is they do show up in numbers. They do. And I think one of the proudest Philadelphia moments I've ever seen watching their sports is when the Flyers took on the Soviet Red Army and ran them right off the ice. You want to talk about a unifying way for the country at a time when we need it, when we were dealing with a Cold War with the Soviet Union at the time. That was it, Kate Smith and all that. But yeah, they are passionate without a doubt. And, in this particular case, they're going to let them have it. And now if you're Ben Simmons, you want to shut them up. I would pick tonight to be one of your better games. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to have his back. And the better he plays, the most likely he's going to tune him out. So, we'll see how it plays out. That's for sure. But I want to go back to that Marcel Dionne situation in Detroit. I was a young fan at the time. My dad used to take me to hockey games at the old Olympia Stadium. One of the best places. I hated to see Olympia go down and really dead. But they had to protect Marcel because after 4 years in Detroit, he went over to the Kings. Yeah. And he had a pretty good career there. He only played like 9 years, but he still, I think, 9 or 10 years made the Hall of Fame at that time. But, with all due respect, now let's face reality. You have a jail inside your professional stadiums because they're nasty. It's one thing. I once sat at Veterans Stadium and bought a ticket, and they were a little out on the loud side. And then I made it a point never to go back and buy a ticket. And what did I end up doing instead? Covering the game for the Detroit Monitor in the press box. It was a little bit more easier to work there than it was otherwise.
Well, not only that, Scott, being born in Pittsburgh and raised in Los Angeles, I got to see Marcel Dionne a lot. And I can remember, I believe it was the 1980 All-Star game out here when it was Marcel Dionne, Dave Taylor, and Charlie Simmer. It was a Triple Crown line. Mario Lessard was in nets, and I think it was the Wales against the Campbell Conference. I sat on the glass for like $65 at the old Fabulous Forum. And let me tell you, you bring up an interesting thing about hockey. And, in my birth city of Pittsburgh and then looking at LA, some of these teams really couldn't draw when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. They were drawing 6,000, 7,000 fans a night. All that hockey was being played in cities like Detroit and Philly, New York, Montreal were drawing. And only when those teams came out did you even get a sellout the day of the game. I mean, maybe the night before, if the Red Wings were coming into town, it would sell out. But you can really walk up 2 days beforehand and get tickets. But yeah, it was a far cry how far hockey's come to where we are today in our 60s, brother.
Yeah. All right. Let me go. Just let everybody know if you're listening, the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, this is the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you get an opportunity to go to youtube.com, just look for South Florida Tribune and kindly subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it very much. We work very diligently to bring you the best possible shows, as evidenced by Mark Mancini. And I love coming on the show with a guy who's practically my age, talk old school, new school, whatever we want to do. But Marcel Dionne, to me, I'll never forget the rivalry that Detroit and Philadelphia had when you had Dave Schultz, Ed Van Amp, and all those Broad Street Bullies. Those two teams are the most penalized teams in the NHL. And we had Bugsy Watson on the Detroit side. It was pretty fun to watch. So, the Red Wings and the Flyers rivalry. Of course, we know the Red Wings beat the Flyers in the Stanley Cup one time, but Philadelphia has been a great organization for a lot of years, and I had the utmost respect for what they did in Philadelphia, especially during the mid-'70s. at a time when that Broad Street Bullies band was there. They were great to watch. I love physical hockey. You'll never get anywhere near it. All right. So with that said, now that we've had an opportunity to talk about, so yeah, I guess Mark, in summary, how do you think Ben Simmons is going to fare tonight?
Well, the Boo Birds will come out, man. I know that. They'll come out big time, so it's going to be interesting. But it's sad because I like Ben Simmons a lot, but not only the Brooklyn fans making the trek over to Philadelphia, that's a hard ticket to come by now with Ben Simmons, especially the next time Brooklyn comes through here. If Embiid and Harden are playing,
Oh,
boy,
yeah.
these tickets could go through the roof.
Yeah. Well, again, if Ben's able to overcome a lot of his mental issues and he plays basketball as a sporting cast, hopefully he'll cushion the blow a little. All right. Two other topics I want to get to before we go on to some Thanksgiving predictions. With their 32-21 loss to the Washington Commanders, are the Philadelphia Eagles better off? Now, bear in mind, Mark, they defeated the Indianapolis Colts 17-16 on the road. Jalen Hurts obviously came up big at the end when it mattered using his legs. I love Jalen Hurts. I really get that. This kid's a stud. And he's exactly what the new wave of quarterback is going to be, using his legs. He's a smart kid. More importantly, he wasn't a number one draft choice either. And some of your best quarterbacks don't have necessarily have to be drafted in the first round. Many of them become busts. So, all right. So, let's face it, the Philadelphia Eagles were never in danger of the Miami Dolphins' perfect record. Then again, the New England Patriots had it perfect till the Super Bowl. But getting back to my point, Mark, okay, was this the best thing that happened to the Eagles?
I think it was because, a lot of people are thinking maybe the Eagles will fall off the wagon train here, with the one loss. But look at the division. The division's making them play better and staying ahead of the pack.
Yeah.
The Giants have slipped a little. The Cowboys are putting the pressure. The Redskins have won, 3 of their last 4. They could have won 4 or 5 in a row here. They lost to Minnesota. But this is what I like about it. They're going to be mentally prepared to play playoff football when it counts in January, because the division is not letting them fall back. Unlike Minnesota there, where there's no competition other than maybe Detroit now, giving a little pressure to the Vikings. This is the bad thing that happens in football. You waltz through a division and everybody thinks you're invincible. But if you haven't been tested, you will be tested. So I like what the Eagles are doing. I think 4 teams are coming out of this division. You might have Detroit put some pressure. You could have the Falcons. And you maybe have the Seahawks here, but I think across the board, you're going to have everybody in the NFC East going to the playoffs and 3 division winners.
Yeah, you know what? You took the words out of my mouth, so I guess I'll save my voice here for these other shows, because you fell into the GMTA category, Mark. Great minds think alike. There's no question it's a great division. And a lot of people didn't think it was going to be a good division. And obviously the AFC West, which we thought would be a good division, has gone downhill big time, with the only real threat coming out of there would be the Kansas City Chiefs. But you know what? I like what the Eagles are doing, and I like what the Commanders are doing too. The Commanders are coming out at the right time. They're navigating through their quarterback situation. Carson Wentz was supposed to be the solution. Taylor Heineke has obviously become the guy they've turned to, and he's put in some solid games as well. And of course, like you said, the Cowboys and the Giants, who definitely got humbled by the Lions a couple of days ago. I didn't see that one coming, but that just goes to show you how far that program has progressed. So, but more power to the Eagles. But the one thing I should point out about the Eagles, though, Mark, is Nick Sirianni, to me, is the most underrated coach out there. He's a young guy, and the longer he continues to put his footprint on this franchise, this guy here, to me, the potential is unbelievable, and he's already showing me a lot of things as a young coach to begin with. So, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. To me, the Eagles losing that one game, to me, was probably the best thing that definitely happened to them all year long. A little adversity doesn't hurt you at all. It really, really doesn't. And I think the Eagles finally had something they could look at. Tape. Well, we lost. We didn't do enough to win, right? So to speak. Now, what do we got to do to fix it? And that's what happens when you lose for the first time. And the Eagles took the high road when they approached it that way. All right, final topic of the night, Philadelphia-wise, we're going to go out there and have a couple Thanksgiving predictions, all right, since it looks like time's going to allow us to do exactly that. The Philadelphia Phillies extend Dave Dombrowski's contract through 2027. You know what? You got to hand it to Dave. Did a heck of a job. Is he worthy of that extension?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. They gave him a carte blanche. I mean, he can go out there and get some key free agents in there. Rumor has it Trey Turner might go there. So, I think they're going to shore up maybe the shortstop position a little, and then I think what they'll do is get another starter in there, maybe get a DeGrom. Who knows? DeGrom's been rumored to go some places, but I think Philly, with having an open checkbook now for Dave Dombrowski, watch out. Sky's the limit.
Yeah, the only thing I hope he doesn't do, because I know he's done that with other markets, but he's won everywhere he's gone, so you can't question the guy. And I talk to him on occasion from time to time. Dave Dombrowski, to me, just hope he doesn't deplete the farm system. But the one thing about the Phillies are not afraid to spend money. That's for sure. And, obviously it's evidenced by the players they have. Bryce Harper didn't come cheap at all. And, of course, Nick Castellanos, they spent a lot of money on him. And the list goes on and on. I don't want to sit here and ramble all players. It's not necessary. The Philadelphia Phillies aren't afraid to spend money. And Rob Thompson's, they gave him an extension as well. And they came out of nowhere to make a deep postseason run. I mean, at some point or another, I am pulling for Bryce Harper to go out there and win a world championship. And I'll tell you what, Bryce Harper could play in any era. I've seen the Phillies play numerous times when I watch the Marlins. And I'm going to tell you something. Kyle Schwarber definitely carries a big stick as well. And the list goes on and on. You talk about some heavy hammer with the bats. These Phils can bash, that's for sure. So, but, Dave Dombrowski, he's won a couple championships. Obviously, guided the Marlins to one. And the Boston Red Sox took the Tigers to the World Series a couple of times, fell up short. But I don't have to list his qualification. The guy simply knows what he's doing. And give a guy like him a fair amount of resources, and you never know. They're going to win, And what else can I say about Dave? And Dave, and think about it. Here's a guy that before he came to Philadelphia was going to go to Nashville to try to get Major League Baseball in Nashville, got a better offer to go to Philadelphia. Well, it's safe to say we know how that's turned out. So.
Oh, no doubt about it.
All right. Well, you know what? Glad we have the time to do it because we're going to talk about some Thanksgiving predictions, Mr. Mancini. All right. Buffalo, Detroit, 12:30 Eastern time. And now bear in mind, the Buffalo Bills are playing in Detroit for the second time in 5 days. Give me a prediction, Mr. Mancini.
I like the Lions in this one. The Lions usually win on Thanksgiving. I'm surprised the Bills went back home. I don't know, probably restrictions and everything. They had to go back home. But now, when I looked at all these games, and I know you're going to get into the next two, this is probably the best Thanksgiving ever as far as football. Everybody's in contention.
Yeah, the Lions are definitely a mystery on Thanksgiving. They've lost a fair amount, but they won a fair amount. But there's a different feel to this team. There really is. They lost a lot of close games a year ago, and this year they started the same thing. But if their defense can keep them in there and they can control the game on the ground, and Jared Goff is a suitable quarterback. Do I think he's a franchise quarterback? Probably not, but a good bridge quarterback. You know what, Mark? Some crazy reason, I'm going to go with the Lions in this game too.
Yeah.
Do you want to venture a score? Probably.
I see. I think they put up 24-16.
Yeah, and I'll give the Lions 26-21. All right. So now the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys.
The Giants are all beat up. The Cowboys are going in for a kill. Oh, my gosh. I think the Cowboys prevail this one 30-17. There's 5 starters on offense out for the Giants.
And they lost a couple of them on Sunday against the Lions. I could not believe the Lions walked into the Meadowlands and won 31-18. They were definitely exposed. So, yeah, I think this game gets ugly for the Giants. I really do. I think the Cowboys are going to win 41-21. I really do. I think the Cowboys, they get Tony Pollard involved. They get Ezekiel Elliott, as well as, Dak Prescott needs to find a way to really show that he's the type of quarterback that can find his receivers and utilize the whole thing. A lot of it's going to depend on Kellen Moore and the game that he calls, because we know Dan Quinn has done a good job. So I actually like the Giants decisively 41-21. In the last game, New England at Minnesota, to me, the Minnesota Vikings are coming off a 40-3 clobbering from the Dallas Cowboys. What Minnesota Vikings team shows up, Mark?
Well, I think Belichick's on a roll now. He's won 14 in a row on the New York Jets. They're in the playoff hunt. They're playing playoff football every week. So I like New England in this one. there's a cushion now in Minnesota. I love Kirk Cousins, but I think the Patriots win this 30-27.
Do you think it's that close?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Again, I'm going to go 33-27 in favor of New England. For some reason or another, I think the vulnerability showed with Minnesota. All right, well, we have another minute or two, so I'm going to run this one by you. Okay, give me your thought process about the Zach Wilson post-gamer. That, to me, where the man doesn't show any accountability, just it didn't cut it for me.
No, I totally agree with that. You got to show accountability. You know, when you lose games and you got to stand up there and take responsibility, especially a quarterback in that position, to stand there and not take accountability or become humble on this thing, as far as the fact that you're the leader of this team, shows me the character of a guy.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? I can rest assured Robert Saleh and the rest of his teammates right now, he's not being guaranteed to start this weekend.
No.
So, but I hand it to Robert Saleh, by the way, a native of Dearborn, Michigan, the way he's not showing his hand right now. There comes a point where, he's listening to his owner, general manager. He's the one that makes the final call on Sunday, and his attitude is, I'm going to evaluate the tape and go from there and see if things will cool down a little bit. But you know what? Zach Wilson, if I were him, what he has to do right now, needs to confront his teammates and say, you know what? I'm young. I made a mistake. Don't. And Saleh has to say, don't do it again.
Yeah.
Because you know what? We win as a team. We lose as a team. You don't throw anybody under the bus. If you throw somebody under the bus, you got a big problem. And I think Zach Wilson, to me, it will become a bust very quickly if he doesn't straighten out. It's not like his numbers are that great. You can't afford to post indigent numbers like he did. I mean, think about it. What did they have? 2 total yards, I think, in the.
Well, not only that, you basically saw what happened, during the off season with him, going out with his mom's friends and rendezvous and all that. I don't care if you're single or what. If you're the star quarterback, only Joe Namath can pull that off in New York and get away with it, not you.
Yeah, no, that's true. He had enough cachet to do that. That's for sure. So, folks, this is Fire Up. My name is Scott Morgan off Motor City Man Mouth. Please be joined by my co-host, Madman Mancini. Mark and I work together on numerous projects. We do another show called Sports Talk Saturday with Bruce Kessinger. And Mark and I have a lot of things that we're planning to do in 2023. I've been blessed to meet him earlier in the year. He happened to take notice of our show, and a partnership has developed here for sure. And I've really enjoyed working with a guy who I have so much respect for. 2 people that have been in the business a long time. We don't take what we do for granted by any stretch. Our goal here is to educate and inform and try to give you all the opinions as we know it, and then you can formulate your own conclusions thereafter. So meanwhile, what we're going to be doing is, tonight our focus is on Philadelphia. Stay tuned on our social media, my social media, and we'll be able to post these shows if you haven't already subscribed. So Mark, with that said, okay, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
XM 203, Sirius 217, WWDB AM 860 out of Philadelphia. Pittsburgh Pirate Podcast with first base coach Derek Brock. This wonderful show on Tuesdays. Across the board in Sports Talk Saturdays with you and Bruce Kessinger, my friend.
Yeah, I'm really delighted, Mark, that we were able to agree on a part-time prime time kind of thing, because you know what, prime time is what it's all about. I want to make sure everybody across the country can do it, and that we're able to go ahead and work that schedule in. I know you're busy, so am I, trying to promote the South Florida Tribune, just to give you a little information about the South Florida Tribune. But before I do that, I'll reiterate one last time that the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. You are seeing it on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We also broadcast live via Facebook Live as well, Twitter as well as our YouTube channel. So this show does get out to a lot. I should also point out that in 2023, we're looking to expand our reach on the 6 different platforms. We're riding a few right now outside of what we're doing. So stay tuned for those updates. So as I told you, the audio portion, I'll say it one last time, because maybe I do tend to talk a little bit too quick. But the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts, and please kindly subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. You want to email us, do so at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Twitter, you can find us at Tribune South. That's at Tribune South, South Florida Tribune. And also, we open up a secondary program, and that's called the Motor City Tribune, where we have a chance to go ahead and post things from my neck of the woods as well, metropolitan Detroit. So, and one last kudos is to Candy Ebling, does a marvelous job the way she gets all the content, the broadcasts up there as well. So that to me is something without Candy, we'd have a hard time doing everything that we need to do. So meanwhile, on behalf of Madman Mancini, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up. And I want to close on this note. Okay, everybody, have yourself a happy, safe Thanksgiving. Enjoy the food. Enjoy your family. I will say one thing, which it's hard. This holiday is hard for me. 2 years ago, 2 days after Thanksgiving, my mom passed away. So this time of the year is a little bittersweet. So I know she's looking down on me, knowing that, hey, you know what? You're doing what you love to do. And I'm looking down on you, and you better just make sure you go out there and do the best you can to make sure that you have a heart and you can convey your message to everybody out there. So, Mom, I love you. I miss you very much after a couple of years, but you're definitely in my mind and you're in my heart as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing my dad on Thanksgiving as well. But with that, so we're going to end it up on a high note. Everybody, happy Thanksgiving. So once again, on behalf of Madman Mark Mancini, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth. Looking forward to having you join us next Tuesday night, whatever city we are in. As college football game day was said, we come into your city. No, I'm a bad singer, so let's not worry about that. So good night, everybody. And once again, have a happy Thanksgiving from Madman and Madmouth. Good night, everybody.